the major issue with the STAIF conference?
Well, they're building up for nuclear power and nuclear weapons in space, or nuclear powered weapons in space.
Yeah.
That's a part of the research, what they're doing here.
Yeah, there's a rumor about the Air Force putting some kind of a weapon on the moon or something, but it was floating around the internet. I don't know if you guys have heard that at all.
It wouldn't surprise me. I haven't heard the specifics of it. You heard anything?
Oh.
That'd be probably part of the long-range plans.
Yeah.
It would make sense.
So it's mostly just kind of the nuclear stuff in space in general then?
Well, that, yeah, and just the fact of what they're going to apply this stuff to. We know that the people who are the contractors and all the people funding this are working on other programs to apply that technology to space space weapons programs.
Well, does it seem kind of unfair that they haven't let you guys voice your views and sign? Because I think it's valid to,
It doesn't surprise me at all that they don't want us in there. That's what we call group think in there.
Yeah, it's the mainstream hegemony, right?
Yeah. So it's no surprise.
Yeah. Well, are there any issues in particular that are kind of focus points for you guys?
One is the nuclear rocket, Project Prometheus. NASA says everything they do now is dual use. Every mission is both military and civilian at the same time. So we asked the question, what's the military application of Project Prometheus, the nuclear rocket?
Oh, okay.
And for years the Air Force, the Pentagon has been saying that they're going to need nuclear reactors in space to power weapons in space, things like the space-based laser. So it's obvious to us what's going on is the development of power sources for the weaponization of space.
Well, one of the things that I'm wondering about is, other countries like the Europeans definitely, and as well as the Chinese, and I guess Pakistan has done some work in this area. They're all going to space also. So does putting weapons into space set up that dynamic beforehand?
Yeah, it's creating an arms race in space.
Yeah.
That's definitely part of what this is about, even though they tried to deny that they know anything about it or talking about it, but this is a big part of it.
Oh, okay. So I guess one of the thoughts might be, by the virtue of putting this stuff up there, we almost compel them to do the same because they want to keep up and don't want to be out.
Well, and I believe that the aerospace industry wants an arms race in space, because then if they have one, it's just like the Cold War. The Soviet Union was a great ally for the weapons industry, who made massive profit by convincing the American people that we were keeping up with the Soviets, when in fact it was the other way around. The historical evidence is very clear. And so now today we're the only game in town in space, but obviously other countries are going to have to respond as the United States moves towards control and domination of space. So this then creates the perfect foil for the weapons industry to say, look, my God, look what they're doing. We've got to have even more now. So it's an intentional process and we know that the Pentagon has long been saying that the weaponization of space will be the largest industrial project in the history of the planet Earth. So we can't afford it. We can't have health care and education and Social Security and an arms race in space. You can't have both.
Yeah. Oh, I noticed your business card a second ago.
Yeah, I was going to give you one of our emails.
Okay.
Our email address.
Yeah, well, let me get this on there. Let me see. Stop the War Machine. Oh, so you guys are local then. StopTheWarMachine.org.
Yeah, we're here in Albuquerque, and Bruce is out of the Global Network Against Weapons and Nuclear Power in Space.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Oh, okay. So, and then it's Bruce, I'm sorry.
Gagnon.
Bruce Gagnon?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Any relation to Ted Gagnon, or?
No.
Oh,
Not that I know of.
I know a fellow out in California who does homeopathic therapy, Ted Gagnon. So.
Maybe we better go see him.
Yeah.
And then, let me see. So, Bruce works with the Global Network Against Weapons and Nuclear Power in Space. And, okay, so you guys are out in Maine then. Yeah. Awesome.
And I'm Bob Anderson. I'm from here in Albuquerque.
Oh, okay. Well, it's great to meet you, Bob. And Bruce,
thanks.
And I'll definitely come back out in a little while and see if I can.
Yeah, there'll probably be more people here later on. We're early at the time for everybody.
Yeah. Well, they're doing the mainstream pep rally in there. So.
Are they?
Yeah,
what's going on? Anything exciting this morning?
Yeah, well, they had a congressperson speak, and I don't know.
From New Mexico? Or?
Yeah, I believe it was Congressperson Heather Wilson. Yeah. And it was an interesting speech, kind of rhetorical, I guess, right? It was like the same speech she uses for everything. Our education is our future. So.
we asked them to let us have an exhibit in there, table space like everybody else, but they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, one of the things that we've been trying to do with Section F is shake up some of the, I hate to say it, but, NASA doesn't love us that much either, and we're trying to kind of shake up the establishment a little bit and say, look, we can use these same technologies for clean, free energy here on Earth. We don't need to put nuclear reactors. We need to investigate zero-point energy, I mean, any 15-year-old kid who watches Star Trek knows that this stuff is out there, at least in terms of fiction, and so we're trying to look at it in terms of how can we make this stuff real, because we're going to end up there anyways, so we might as well skip the environmentally damaging stuff.
Yeah.
And the whole... Not only is the launching of nuclear materials dangerous, they're talking about nuclear-powered mining colonies, on the moon and Mars. So you have the whole problem of launch, a series of launches that can go wrong and major contamination as a result. But the whole production process is a problem. When they launched Cassini in 1997 with 72 pounds of plutonium on board at Los Alamos Labs here in New Mexico, when they were fabricating the generators for the Cassini mission between 1994 and 96, they had 244 cases of worker contamination reported to the Department of Energy. And now, they're talking about ramping up DOE facilities, expanding DOE facilities to handle more production of plutonium for space missions. So DOE's record over the years is all about contaminating water, contaminating the air at their facilities, and contaminating people in the communities. Well, we can't just continue to let that happen.
Well, I think one of the bright sides, though, is at least from the perspective that we've had, they're starting to gradually look at some of the more far-out ideas. Like free energy. I mean, there are thousands of inventors across the world working on these concepts, and so I think the Section F part of STAIF is really the first mainstream venue where they've started to look at these things somewhat seriously. So hopefully they'll kind of move past some of the the environmentally damaging stuff onto more productive technologies.
Where do you live?
Oh, I live out in Seattle. I live in Redmond. So.
And what do you do for a living?
Oh, I run American Anti-Gravity. It's pretty much a full-time job now. Yeah. We try and do a lot of work with kind of the little guy inventors, because they can't get airtime in the media, and they're doing awesome work. And there's always this idea of if somebody invented anti-gravity, or with OSIN, the Canadian group, if somebody invented free energy, wouldn't it just show up overnight? And the reality is nobody takes these fellows seriously. They're doing awesome work and they're getting results, and they can't get the time of day from the press. So we're kind of becoming the press to try and help spread their word, and hopefully build interest and educate the public. So.
Can you tell me in 2 paragraphs about anti-gravity? What the concept? Tell me a little more about it.
Well, it's actually as it grows, it's getting more and more complex. A couple of years ago, I had a really good short spiel for it, but now it's kind of the birth of a new science, really. But I think it takes us past a lot of the limitations that we've had with like petroleum and stuff like that, and nuclear is kind of a poor shoe-in for petroleum, and for the most part, it doesn't produce the kind of energy that's required to replace the oil. So we're looking at stuff that's really far out. It may take a lot more development time, but once it comes to fruition, it's going to be a heck of a lot better than anything currently on the drawing board.
How do you feel about the colonization of space? Are you into that?
Yeah, although just like everybody else, I guess I kind of worry about our environmental track record here on Earth. We've done a bang-up job with this planet, so there's nothing to make us think that the next one will be any better.
Well, that's what we talk about, is what kind of seed do we carry with us as we inevitably move off this planet. And if we carry this bad seed of nuclear power and greed and warfare that they're now planning to do, then we're just going to recreate the same thing all over again.
Yeah.
And so I think there has to be, within the space community, there has to be a moral and ethical debate about what kind of seed we carry with us. And we don't hear that, coming out from inside the doors, of these kind of conferences. And that's why we come to these, because we think someone has got to raise these issues.
Oh yeah. Well, but I think that the culture is starting to change. Like the original Star Trek, every time they meet an alien, they shoot the darn thing, right? Whether or not it's waving the white flag. But what we're seeing is like even in the evolution from the 60s to the 90s, when they had Next Generation, the first show was really about our moral and ethical responsibility in space. That encounter at Farpoint, right, where the alien is just trying to survive, and so they end up saving it instead of
But
killing
unfortunately, we don't hear that. At least, and I pay close attention. I subscribe to aerospace publications. I belong to National Space Society and read their magazine. I look at all the websites and the mainstream space organizations, but I don't see any real evidence of that kind of discussion.
Yeah. Well, is it okay if I pull back and get a little bit of footage of you guys with the signs? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me see. So I guess this is, kind of what, day 3 then for?
Well, we've actually been working on this since last week. We started out last Thursday going down to Silver City, and there was a talk and a rally down there, and then we went to Las Vegas on Saturday, and then Sunday we had a talk here. So this is actually about the 4th or 5th day for us.
Oh, okay. Well, and again, I'll get your sign. No weapons in space, and then no nukes in space. And ma'am, you are? I'm sorry?
Gwen Packard.
I'm sorry?
Gwen Packard.
Gwen, oh,
Yes.
okay. And was it just not putting nuclear stuff up because the danger of just, if it crashes, or like with Cassini, I think, where it had to reorbit?
All of the above.
Oh, okay. And then the weaponization, I guess, has also been a concern.
Right.
And now he mentioned that there are some dual roles for a lot of these systems, and they're not really telling the public about what this alternative role might be.
Right.
Interesting. So,
Especially with regard to like the spaceport that they're building in southern New Mexico.
Richard Branson's port. Oh, and ma'am, you are? I'm sorry?
Sally Alice Thompson.
Sally, okay. Well, and do you have any thoughts on why you're here? And
Yes, definitely.
oh, well, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
I'm opposed to imperialism. Any one country trying to dominate.
Oh, so the take is then kind of exporting American culture into space and the proliferation of nuclear weapons. It's kind of an imperialist move, right? We're taking over space to some degree. Great. Well, I'll go ask these fellows really quick.
We'll give you some sidewalks.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Hi, I'm Tim Ventura from American Anti-Gravity. Let me see. Keep space for peace, and no weapons, no nukes in space. And do you guys have a few comments about why you're here? Oh, I'm sorry. If you don't want to be on camera, I can not name it.
Yeah. It's okay with me.
Oh, it's okay. I won't point it at you.
We're here because we know that the space program now is being advanced. The whole weapons in space policy of our government is being advanced for us, the U.S., to have total control of space so that other countries can't have access to it.
This goes back to her comments about imperialism and kind of taking over what belongs to all mankind.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what we object to, is the total control of space by our government when it's going to militarize it.
Sure.
That's what the problem is that they want to put nuclear power and weapons up in space. And they already have a satellite up there that is now supposed to prevent other countries from having access to it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And that's been part of the Space Command for years now, that they have had what they call the 2020 goal, which was to use a strategy where they would follow the same kind of strategy we would have with land and sea. Now it's air. Because they have control of the seas.
So you're saying the timeline for space domination is 2020 then? That's their...
2020.
Oh, okay.
And the Space Command in Colorado, in Colorado Springs
Sure,
has
sure.
a brochure that identifies that, and they put it out years ago. I got the copy of it back in at least 10 years ago, and it's called the Space Command's Goal for 2020.
Oh, so this is
And-
kind of a Cold War thing then that they've kept around, right?
You can get that by just, ordering it. I just wrote a letter
Oh,
to
sure.
the Space Command and got a copy of it. And it goes in detail about how they got control of the sea, how the U.S. has gotten control of land masses now, and that's what all this war for oil is all about.
Oh,
In
okay.
Iraq, and now they are going to go for control of space.
Okay. Well, thanks again.
So,
Oh, no, I absolutely appreciate it. Well, I'll go down and... Is it okay if I get a few seconds of video, ma'am?
Oh, you can.
Oh, I'm with American Anti-Gravity. We're reporting on the conference.
You're in.
I'm with American Anti-Gravity. American Anti-Gravity. We're kind of an independent online journal for breakthrough technology. Excuse me. So we're here to interview some of the conference attendees, but in a way it's kind of, I personally think it's kind of unfair that they haven't let you guys in to voice your concerns and kind of, well, I think it's unfair that they haven't let you in to voice your concerns and start a rational discussion about some of the dangers with nuclear technology. So
Since when did that happen?
yeah. Well, let me get your sign. It says no nuke space, stop laser weapon development. And were there any particular issues that are kind of hot buttons for you, or was it just the...
Well, I've been in New Mexico now for 35 years. I've been involved in anti-nuclear work that entire time. New Mexico has suffered very much because of the nuclear industry and the weapons production here. We're close to 50th in the nation on every scale of human quality of life.
Oh,
so
okay.
Obviously it hasn't brought us great jobs and great wealth.
Do you think
like
this
it's
has
always
created
sold.
kind of an elite then? The
No,
people
it's
who work
not
the labs
created.
versus...
Well, there's people that make money at the labs, but the point is that instead of developing industries that would bring some kind of
true wealth.
quality of jobs and true wealth, we're just having people sit here, poison our land, poison our people, and not pay taxes because they don't, and the money goes to the multinational or U.S. corporations that are making nuclear weapons and the nuclear industry, which of
Okay.
course is subsidized also by our tax money,
Yeah.
which could go into important things like health and education.
Absolutely.
So there's a reason why New Mexico, with all these premier labs, are at the bottom of the barrel on anything that benefits people.
Yeah,
We have
yeah.
27% of our children living in poverty. We have a big hunger problem. Does that square with these wonderful jobs that the labs bring?
There was a congressional representative in one of the earlier conferences. Excuse me. And not only had she mentioned that, she didn't really seem to have a plan to fix it. She seemed to be fine with the status
is
quo.
that the labs should not be doing nuclear weapons. They should not be doing a new round of poison for the world in developing new weapons, new bombs, and all that goes with that. Instead, the work of the labs should be to promote energy
Sure.
that is non-polluting.
Clean, renewable resources that don't
and
damage the environment.
not only renewable, but sustainable. And that is not nuclear.
Yeah.
That is not nuclear. In fact, I've got a yellow cake in the car. We were going to do something with that because the legacy of uranium mining and milling and the yellow cake in the first round with the Kool-Aid that went with it has left many, many people poisoned.
Oh,
They
I
haven't
see.
cleaned up that mess. So now we're going to pollute space. We're going to pollute the world and control the world from space and put nukes in space. They can't even clean up the land or uranium mine.
Sure.
We have WIP. They can't clean that up. Who's going to watch things for 10,000 years?
Yeah, I've heard that with the Yucca mine, that was supposed to be the big solution, but there are cracks and fissures that run down to the water table, right? So that there are definitely some issues here. Well, hopefully
When I
they'll
first
warm up
came to
to
New Mexico, I heard the term National Sacrifice Area, and I was astounded. And since all along, I've realized that they're really serious about that. New Mexico is a national sacrifice area for nuclear energy. And there's no intention to clean it up or make it better. We just keep getting more plutonium and more junk.
Well, thanks again for your time. And
I don't think it will.
I'm sorry.
Well, it probably won't make any difference. But anyway, Astrid is very...
Oh, Astrid, you said? Oh, I'm sorry, Astrid? I'm sorry, I'm Tim Ventura from American Anti-Gravity. I'm reporting on the conference. I was wondering if I could get some of your thoughts on some of the concerns. If it's okay. But what are some of the major concerns that brought you out here today?
The thought that there's going to be a whole new round of nuclear weapons built. The thought that our country feels free to move into space. And that space is part of the commons, like water and air and the land, and that needs to be for the well-being of all people. And the idea that technology is being used to gain dominance of one group of people to gain dominance over the rest of the world is kind of horrifying.
Well, I probably shouldn't say this on camera taping myself, but being from Seattle, most of the corporations in the Seattle area now have become a little bit more responsible. They're by no means perfect, but they're at least making an effort to work with a lot of the green organizations. Recycle paper is all over the place, and Starbucks recycles all the time. Even McDonald's, right? Even McDonald's is starting to clean up their act. But the strange thing has been being at this conference, unfortunately, seeing some of the mainstream aerospace interests. It's almost like stepping back into the 50s. The environment is, what is the environment? We've never heard of it. So
there's an amazing divorce between the outcome of what these people do. I grew up in this family of a missile scientist, one of the German rocket scientists. And so I really understand the degree to which they're divorced from what they do.
Sure.
They really see only that they're practicing their craft and their type of science as well as they can, and they do not concern themselves with how this is used. And so it's up to the people, many of these people who are driving by who think this issue has nothing to do with them, that somebody's taking care of the outcomes and the morality and the future, and truly no one is.
Excuse me. Well, I guess one thought would be, and I don't know if STAIF would consider this in the future, but have you thought about petitioning them to allow kind of a group to focus on the moral concerns, and not just necessarily with nuclear power, but also the potential weaponization of space and the kind of culture that we're going to be exporting to the stars? Because I don't think we've seriously analyzed what kind of values our descendants up there may end up having that we could avoid if we structured things a little better.
My experience is not that they're into communication very much, right? I think technology is their manner of communication.
Oh, okay.
And so it has to come from people who want a better future than weapons in space and weapons everywhere and global control of weather and wholesale insanity, that they begin to listen to that. But it's going to take many, many people, not just the few of us. Today we're sort of the conscience of this group, because the conscience is not in there in that meeting.
Yeah.
And so those people who are parts of their families, when they gain awareness of what they're doing with our future, need to say, we won't tolerate this.
Well, and if there is a bright outcome to, I think, your efforts out here, it's that I think a lot of the conference attendees are approaching it more out of ignorance, or as you've suggested, just the intense focus on what they do, rather than, it doesn't seem malicious, they just don't know how else to do it.
It's either a good old boys network or a young boys network, and not so good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the old clubhouse where people wrote on the door, "Keep out, girls not allowed," and all of that. It's this high-level fraternity that's thinking one little tiny piece of what humanity is capable of.
Yeah.
And in that, in totally exploiting this piece over and over and over again, to many reiterations, they have lost sight of the humanity and our humanity and the population around them, and they're only thinking about the technology.
Oh,
and it's
sure.
become real inhuman.
Well, I'm actually, after the conference, I'm going to Richard C. Hoagland's house, and he's a big space activist.
Oh, tell him I emailed. Never heard from him.
Richard C. Hoagland. Yeah, from Coast to Coast. And one of the things that we were hoping to discuss was kind of starting to grow space activism again, like it was in the 60s, back when the public had a voice in the direction that it went in, and they had some control over how it was implemented. So hopefully,
I think that people who are working in this field are not looking beyond that they're doing an outstanding job. Never mind that outstanding job could destroy the human race. And they're looking at their paychecks. And they're not putting two and two together and figuring out that in their hand is the destruction of everything they had hoped for, including their families, their children, grandchildren.
Well, another example of that is the CERN reactor, the particle collider that goes, I believe in Europe, that goes online in 2007. They'll be able to begin producing black holes on Earth on demand. And
good.
In theory, they won't cause any trouble, but there have been some European protests about that, and it's been pretty readily dismissed. They said, well, we just don't value the public's voice on this. We've already spent billions of their money.
The important thing to understand is they don't. Right.
Yeah.
They don't look at the consequences. If they can create a black hole on demand, I mean, imagine.
Yeah.
Why would anybody want to do that? But they're so involved in their science, and until we understand that, these specialists are going off on tangents, just like our politicians. They're carrying to the nth degree. What can we do if we have control?
Sure.
Not thinking about, gee, is this the stupidest idea that mankind ever had?
Yeah, well, and controlling the external environment rather than their internal selves, maybe that's an emotional growth thing that they could work on in the future.
Well, yeah, if scientists are exporting black holes, our government is exporting democracy that we can impose on someone else, not understanding that in the human heart beats the need to be free.
Sure.
And to make one's own decisions. And no matter how wonderful what we send them is, it's not theirs, and thank you, they don't want it.
Absolutely.
And why are we so surprised they're fighting to the every last person to get rid of this yoke we've put on them?
Well, I should let you guys go for now, but I definitely appreciate your time and your thoughts.
Thank you.